You'll never get next level results with the same identity that you currently have. Think about that. You will never, I sometimes say it like this, you will never out earn your identity. And in terms of the results that you're getting currently in your life, especially if you want to level them up, you want to see something happen differently in your business, your family business, your entrepreneurial journey, your family, your personal life, your health, you won't actually be able to get and or sustain next level results with the current version of you. Hey guys, it's Anne. And this week I want to talk about something that a lot of times successful people avoid. And there's this nefarious thing that happens when you've had success in an area of life, especially for those of us, I'm over 60, but especially I started to notice it in my late 40s, where people would have success and they would kind of freeze frame their identity. And it was like, okay, I got to nobody move, I got to where I wanted to get, and I feel like I won the game. And so we're just going to stop the game right now. And their look never changes. Their clothing, in a certain sense, never changes. Their hair never changes. Their way of moving about life never changes. And I want to contrast that with somebody who I knew. If you don't know, we lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for about 25 years. And San Francisco, a lot of tech development, tech software guys, gals. And there was somebody that I knew who was the total opposite of that. And it was like every juncture of life, they were happy to change and they were always interested in leveling up. So that's what I want to talk about this week. If you are a woman, or hi guys, if you're watching us, yay. Okay, that's cool. I love it. We do have a couple of men in our vortex, which is awesome. But if you are a woman, you are over 50, over 60, over 70, over 80, like over 90, right? I mean, Sarah had a baby at 90. Okay. Moses, I say Mo, delivered Israel from Egypt at about 80. So whatever age you are, if you're younger than that, welcome. Get some wisdom drops, guys. So if you are in that space where you've had success, like you're not hurting, okay? It's not falling apart for you. That's who I want to talk to about achieving those next level dreams that you have, that God, I believe, hardwired into your heart. Whether you want to have a family business, which is kind of the zone I'm in right now, whether you want to have an entrepreneurial journey, you want to have a side hustle, you don't want a business, you just want to be able to contribute more or be more involved in your local community or get better at your golf game, whatever it is, it doesn't matter to me. You want to run an Ironman, you want to do an Ironman, I have the woman who should train you. Her name's Markel. Go follow her. She'll change your life. So in that space, I've noticed these two things that literally sit in contrast with each other. And that's what I want to talk about this week. I want to give you tips for leveling up, how you change and how you actually step into that leveling up, especially after you've had some success. There's no program attached. There's no workbook. There's a little bit of swag, and it's super expensive. If that sounds like something you're like, actually, Ann, tell me about it. So if you are an entrepreneur or a family business and you have recently earned at least $2.5 million and you feel like you are hitting a ceiling that for some reason you can't break through, I have the experience for you. I am hosting our guided visualization and identity expansion experience. This is a guided, faith-based 2-day experience at a luxury 5-star hotel in the San Francisco Bay Area. My team and I will be walking you through 2 days of guided visualization to help you sit in that chair in heavenly places, identify what God has for you next, and then step into the visualization exercises of it's already done. If that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, again, it's very expensive. There's very little swag. There's no workbook. It is for a specific group of highly focused entrepreneurs. It is by application only. We will be at a 5-star luxury hotel. You're going to have to pay for your travel, the whole 9 yards. But this is the structure that helps successful entrepreneurs level up when nothing else seems to work. It's about stepping into your next identity so that everything that you know you've been called to actually resonates with you with ease. If you're interested in learning more about this, click below on the link in the description, and my team and I will send you an application and an information packet. All right, now back to our program. So in this space, you've already succeeded. Like you already have stuff that you can point to and say, hey, I achieved that. And I want to talk about the 2 different paths that you can take. And then for those of you who are like, Anne, I don't want this to be the cap of my life, even though it looks good and you've had some success, you're like, I know God has called me to more. How do we do that? I want to give you 3 practical tacticals. But before I do that, I want to unpack this thing that my husband and I started to observe about 15 years ago. We're like, because we had a couple friends that had really big exits early, like in their 30s. And this was like back in the day. And they had really big exits early. And some of those friends continued to evolve and change and get more and take more risk and just have what I would call a joie de vivre, a joy for living, an abundant perspective. Other friends that we noticed, they were like, okay, nobody move. It was like they wanted to freeze frame their success. And in that freeze frame of success, what actually happened is they just became really insular and really myopic. And in that space where it was like, okay, we don't want to change the rules of the game because we won the game at this level. And so here's the lesson for those of us who have not had, billion-dollar exits or multiple $100 million exits. All right. I'll just say not yet. So for those of us in that space, what are some of the things that we can take away from the observation of these 2 different paths? So let me set the scene. Your kids are grown. If they're not empty nesters yet, they're soon to be empty nesters. You have financial stability, whether it's through investments or a family business, or you are working a job. You're financially stable. And you've had a couple of wins. You've just had a couple of wins. I'll put it that way. Drop some of your wins in the chat. I think one of the things that is underrepresented is actually the celebration of wins in life, right? There's a saying, what we celebrate gets replicated. So I'm good with you winning because your wins make it more likely that I'll win. My wins make it more likely that you'll win. We live in an abundant, God-created universe. So I'm just going to get that off the table. If you're like snarky and you think it's a zero-sum game, this is not the channel for you. It's just like, bye-bye, okay? So in that space, though, what does it look like? So you've had some wins and you're like, Anne, I actually want to level up, but I don't know the strategies and the tactics, because maybe your win was like a lot of the friends that we had when we were younger. It was like it just kind of came through, good timing, the blessing of the Lord, and like hyper focused energy, like the energy of youth. It wasn't like the wins came from, hey, I meditated, I visualized, I did all this stuff. They're like, no, it was just kind of dumb luck, or however you want to phrase it. And so when you get to over 40, over 50, over 60, over 70, you're like, okay, that worked, but I don't know why it worked. And now I'm in a season where if I want to level up, I actually have to have some tactics and strategies that I can apply by intention. You're familiar with that concept where you have a victory and you're like, okay, I had that victory, but I actually have to reverse engineer the victory to understand how I actually achieved it. And so that's really what I want to speak life into. So again, let's frame this up, because I think this is something that not a lot of people talk about. especially in successful circles. So sometimes we have success and we're like, the success that we have sits a little beyond how we think of ourselves. It sits a little outside of our actual identity. And we're like, whoa, how'd that happen? And we might self-sabotage. We might blow all the money. We might do something dumb. And my contention again is our identity is the thing that will always determine how we steward these different levels of success. And I'm not talking just in money, guys. I'm talking health, wealth, relationships, the whole 9 yards. And money is just a really small part of wealth. So nobody get hung up on that. But in that context, sometimes the self-sabotage takes the form of, okay, nobody move. We like, I don't know, you made $200 million and it's like, nobody move, right? And you start to go from an expansive identity into a contraction identity. You start to go from this abundant place to all of a sudden you're like counting pennies, or you're like, you change in that process. And what happens is that actually shuts off your future. Okay. The contrast to that is you stay in the expansive identity. You stay in that place where it's all possible. Like, what's next? Okay. My husband and I used to have this ongoing, I'll call it discussion. And my theme was always, why not? Like, why don't we do this? Like, why not? Right. And he was in this space where he was like, why bother? Like, why would I bother to do that? And what's funny about it is, in certain situations, right, he was definitely right and I was definitely wrong. And in other situations, I was definitely right and he was definitely wrong. But the process was always expansion. It was, hey, we had this thing came through, like, what's next? What is it that God is going to unfold next in our life? And what I realized was, and I think I'm going to give some props to all my designers and my architects and my engineers out there, people who our jobs, our trades actually depended on visualizing and communicating that vision ahead of time to someone who didn't have that vision. So if you're an architect, an interior designer, a decorator, an engineer, you're a mathematician, like that was my love in school was math, like even non-Euclidean, like all the math stuff, where you would get to a place where you could visualize it ahead of time before it manifested, if you will. And then your job was to communicate what you had visualized and modeled to someone who didn't literally have language for the model. Like they didn't know what a vector was. They didn't know what it was. And so that skill set, I think, helped me in this process. And that's what I want to give to you guys today. So here are 3 practical tacticals. If you are in a season where you're like, and I know I want more, I know I want to up level, I know that we're not done yet. And so after you've rested for a bit, when my husband and I, technically, we will never retire, but technically we retired about 10 years ago in our mid 50s. And we were exhausted. And we moved up to our ski cabin and we took 9 months and we did nothing. We ate and drank. And it's like, we came out of it. We're like, okay, we got to do something, right? But at the time we were tired. So if you're in that space where you're like, Ann, I've been pushing my whole life, I finally had a big win and I'm just tuckered out, that's okay, friend. Listen to this video. Let God give to you an image, unlock your imagination, awaken your imagination for what is next. And that's where these tacticals really sit. So the difference between those 2 types of people, one is the type where it's like, hey, we won and we're going to set up a tombstone. And that's a reference, if you guys know what a tombstone is, when you do an IPO or you do a big round of I don't know what they call it, but you get the tombstone of the company, of the deal to set on your shelf. The first time I gave language to this was like, my husband and I went to a party and I had this observation. I was like, I said, everybody's alive, but they're all dead. It's like they're alive, they're here, they're talking, they're present, but everything that they are doing is a freeze frame from the houses that they built to the lifestyle that they built. It's a freeze frame of a moment in time when they perceived that they won. And then it was like all of a sudden went on lockdown. And I had this observation. I was driving through this very lovely neighborhood with my husband, and I said, what I'm seeing in the spirit right now is all of these dream homes. And don't get me wrong, I have dream homes. I love dream homes. I love houses. It's awesome, right? Solomon was considered wise based on how he set his table. So it's not that I'm not good with all of this stuff. But in this particular instance, I was like, hun, it's like every single one of these houses is their tombstone. It's like I'm in a graveyard, because instead of this being a place where people are being sent from, if you know what the word apostle means, it's actually a Roman origin word, I think. If I don't have that right, somebody will correct me on that. But I believe it's a Roman origin word where you are being sent to disciple a culture in a particular structure. You're being sent from, you're being sent out. You're still on duty. You're still doing stuff. You're still growing, moving, discipling. Versus a graveyard. It's like, okay, I won at this level, and here's my dream house, which is really my tombstone, and not in a good way. And nobody move. And I'm just going to go from here to 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 here. And my life is going to get more insular and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it was just this snapshot in time. Have you ever been in a place where you feel like God opens up your field of vision, and all of a sudden you can see kind of behind the veil in the spirit realm? You know that scene in the movie? It was a Will Smith movie. I think it was like Men in Black or something, where they go into the stadium and the guy is like, I can see behind the veil, and then it closes. That was kind of the type of experience I had. And I was like, hun, I'm good with it. You know, I'm good with all this. But it was really important to me to communicate at that time, like, I'm not done, tombstone, dead, circle the wagons, control the narrative, control my life, freeze frame my hairstyle, freeze frame I'm just not done like that. And I don't want to be. And I don't think that's what God has called people to. And yet that's what I'm observing in this structure. And he was like, wow, what is it with you in the spirit, girl? I share that with you because I was like, it was such a real experience. And after that first go around of this particular thing, it was I'll just call it a very visceral experience for me. It was one of those things where I felt like God was unpacking to me that same verse in Genesis: be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth, redeem the earth. And I kind of set about trying to understand, okay, I know this can happen, right? It's okay to celebrate our victories. It's okay to celebrate our wins. But in that celebration of our wins, we don't want to close off and move from an expansive identity to a constricted identity in the moment of victory. So 3 tactics that I use pretty consistently to help stave off the freeze frame. Like, nobody move. All right. We got the house, we got the cabin, we got the beach house, we got the portfolio, whatever your win looks like. Or maybe your kids are knocking it out of the park and you're like, we got the family picture. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? Maybe you got the pet that is like the award-winning pet. Whatever the win is, like, the wins are designed to be testimony for other people and God and ourselves. And God is always in the business of expansion. So what are the 3 tactics that I'm consistently going back to? The first is you have to write the vision down. Okay. You have to actually get into a place. And I talked about this in a previous video about that you need like a couple of things. You need a skill and a tool. You need a notebook, and you need the skill set of learning how to sit down and write out the vision that you feel like God is inviting you into for this next season. And here's the thing, guys, take this lesson from Bob Proctor. If you don't know who Bob Proctor is, he's an old timer. He's with the Lord now, but fabulous gentleman. And what he talks about is you actually have to have goals and visions that are not logical. They have to actually sit outside your current paradigm of possibility, because you need the energy of that paradigm shift to actually bring you into that next season. So the first thing is you got to write the vision down. Give yourself time. I mean, the practice that I use is I sit down daily. I'm a pretty early bird most of the time, and I just take time to sit down and really image what could be possible. And I'll say this for people, if you feel like, Anna, I'm already like winding down here, maybe the image is just something that you're putting into the ether for the next generations. You just never know, right? You just never know. So don't cut yourself off from that. And remember, Moses was 80, Sarah was 90. So give yourself a break. All right. That's the first thing. The second thing is you actually need to understand that the current version of you, whoever you are being right now, is not the version of you that's going to be alive and living in that new vision. Okay. This is the whole gig, guys. Okay. So when I talk about people who are like freeze frame, we had a victory, nobody move. Uncle Rico, if you know that reference, it's like Uncle Rico from the movie Napoleon Dynamite. He like freeze framed in high school. Okay. It's like, you don't want to be Uncle Rico. Okay. In that process, your awareness of the fact that you're going to change. Okay. Just write that in the notes, write that in the comments. I'm going to change. It's okay for me to change. It's okay. Like, we need change. Okay. So in that process, the you who has achieved everything that you've achieved right now, you literally by laws of the universe, by laws of God, if you will, is not going to be the same version that achieves the next goal. Like, you can't be. And so I think one of the things that I've noticed in as I've observed some friends who have freeze framed, I'm like, they're unwilling to change. And there's something that is so fearful or out of control about change that they're just like, no, I'm not going to change. And it's sad to me, because they have so, like, I'm sure people like this. They have so much to contribute, but because they won't step out of their shell, they won't let the transformation process happen for the next season, they just miss it. And I want to share a personal story on this, which I think may help. So have any of you, have you ever lost someone who was close to you young? Maybe a sibling, maybe a parent, maybe a friend. That was one of the first times that God really got a hold of this in me. I was in my mid-30s when my mother and my father both passed on to glory. And I remember when it happened, I had this awareness that it was before their time. They weren't supposed to go as swiftly as they went and as young as they went. And in that moment, I had this kind of awareness with the Lord, like, I don't want to miss what you designed me to do and to be and to share in this lifetime. And so I had, through that semi-traumatic event, I had this cycling of awareness that everything should happen like right now. Like, if you have an idea for something, get it done now. If you have an idea to call a friend, call them now. If you have an idea, and I'm just snapping my fingers here because it was that, and it was kind of slow at first. And then it was like, okay, now. And later I learned about someone called W. Clement Stone, who I didn't know at the time, but how he always said, do it now, do it now, do it now. And I was like, I get it. Like that awareness. And so if you're in that space where you're like, Anne, I know I'm called to level up, not quite sure what to do. Step one is sit down with God. Ask him to show you something about what's possible for you that you haven't considered yet. I did this again the other day and I was like, he showed me something. I was like, whoa, like I can dream pretty big, but that was like, wow. I was like, I'm all in. That sounds like fun. And so ask God to show you something that you don't know, that is actually possible for you in this lifetime. I mean, think about it. If you understand quantum superposition, if you understand the mathematics and the resonance and the music of the universe, if you will, it's all possible, friend. It's all possible. Now, I know it can be scary. Change can be scary, but why not? Right? What else are we going to do? So the first thing is you got to write it down. The second thing is you have to be okay with the fact that you're not going to know how. Why are you not going to know how? Because the present version of you is not the version of you that's going to achieve the new goal. But okay, just let's use the Ironman example. How many of you guys have done and gals have done an Ironman? All right, like I said, if you want to do an Ironman, one of our clients, her name is Markel. She's amazing. She's trained like Olympic swimmers. She'll get you ready for an Ironman. So let's use an Ironman as an example. If you decided to do an Ironman today, the person who completed the Ironman would be a radically different person. If you're like never been there before, you've never done it before, you never even run a marathon before, you've never ridden a bike for that many miles before, you've never swam that far. So that use that athletic illustration. It's one of the reasons I love sports is it really helps give a picture, an image. It's like, oh, okay, I can understand that. My physiology would change. I'd lose a little weight. I'd gain some muscle. I'd gain some stamina. It would be awesome, right? So in the same way, the goals that you're going to set that you haven't achieved yet are going to require by law for you to not be who you are currently today, which is why you're not going to know how, which is also why a lot of people freeze frame. They stop. They're like, hey, I won the last round of life. I'm stopping. And that, again, was the experience that I had after this party, driving in a particularly lovely neighborhood. And I was like, hun, I feel like I'm driving through a cemetery instead of like this amazing place where people should be sent from. Like, yeah, okay. Hopefully you guys are getting that drift. Now, the third practical, tactical, if you will, is give yourself some space to sit down and image again with the Lord. Okay, if I'm setting this goal and I'm not going to be the same person I am today, who am I going to be to the best of my awareness? Who am I going to be in that space? Again, let's go back to the Ironman. So you would just take this piece of paper and you can draw a stick figure, you can draw a smiley face, you can get a picture of yourself and write around it, who are you going to be? You know, some people like to take images of people who've already achieved that stuff and superimpose their head on it. Right? It's like, be delusional for 1 minute. Like, if we understood the goodness and the power and the amazingness of God, we would be like, we just would be blown away. So in that process, look and ask, just to ask God, just sit down and ask him. And for heaven's sakes, if it's good, just believe what you hear. Like, just take a risk on it. And just ask him, who am I? Who am I? So let's use the Ironman example again. So who am I if I've completed an Ironman? Well, I have some stamina. I probably have really good breath control. I have stronger muscles. I probably weigh less. I'd be the kind of person who gets up in the morning. I do my training. I have a training schedule. I have probably a more healthy eating schedule, and I'm more of a planner. Does that make sense? So you're a different person. Well, in the same way, when you are looking at your life and you're thinking about, oh, hey, who is this person? What is the thing that you want that maybe you haven't had the courage, or you haven't felt like you had the freedom, or it was too risky to even image it with the Lord? That's the space I want to bring you hope with today. All right. It's all possible. God literally says, you have not, sunshine, because you ask not. So sit down with the Lord, ask him, show me some stuff that I haven't considered yet. Let's write this vision down. Let's make it plain. Then, when you get in that space, realize that you're not going to know the how. Okay. You're just not going to know the how. And me saying that as a math girl, like one of the reasons I liked math was everything kind of worked out, right? It was like an equation. There was a right answer, there was a wrong answer. It was like, okay. And then I got to non-Euclidean math. I'm like, wait, what is happening? And it was like, oh, okay, we're going to get into like quantum theory and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, hey, actually, this is pretty cool. It's almost musical in nature. It's resonance and all that kind of stuff. And so in that space, take the risk to believe that it's okay that you don't know how, right? It's like you're in the heart of the Lord. Okay. I'm presuming you're not going to do anything bad. All right. Like you gotta be good, guys. You gotta do good stuff with your good stuff. All right. And then finally, like ask the Lord to show you, who is this new version of me? And then from that third practical tactical, begin to live. You've probably heard this a million times. I'm going to slow down because I want you to hear this. Hear it in your heart. Begin to live as that person now. Begin to live as that identity now. And what happens is it's like everything just happens. It just like all of a sudden it really does kind of quantum leap. And the first time I ever experienced this in my life, I kind of didn't know what happened. And it oddly enough was around a real estate transaction. I was in my 20s and I just had this image of something that I wanted to be able to purchase and invest in. And it seemed totally illogical. It was like, there's no way in the known universe that this is a logical, practical thing. And I just kept my mouth shut. I just kept my mouth shut. But I was talking to God about it. And I got to a place where I was just like, okay, well, if this had happened, how would I be acting today? And here's what I noticed. I made that decision, and little things like my spending habits changed. So I wasn't making runs to Target. I wasn't dropping, $100 here or $100 there. I actually, and it was about a year where I just was like, oh, well, if I have this thing, I'm not going and looking for entertainment by dropping $100 at Target every week or, 2 times a week. I just wasn't doing that. I was allocating that time and those resources differently because I was imaging myself in this space. And again, at the time, I didn't have language for it, but that's the beauty of youth. So here's my challenge to you. Look back over your life and see where you kind of had that, you had the success, you had the competency, but you didn't quite understand how it happened. And look back and look at some of the actions that you took. You might find that you stepped into that identity without even knowing it. Maybe it was just the energy of youth or the everything's all ahead of me. And I think that's what I wanted to kind of wrap this week's topic on, is that, in Christ, in God, it's always all ahead of us, guys. It's not like we're called to wind down. You're not actually called to downsize. Okay. Like that's not, God's vocabulary isn't shrinking. God's vocabulary is, I'm the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. I'm the God of generations. I'm the God of expansion. I'm the God of possibility. And that's what I want to leave you with today. So as long as it is called today, remember that you were designed for something great. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Hey friends, remember to like and subscribe and share this channel with a friend. For someone who is in that place where they know that God has called them to more, and you're in that mix of strategy and spirit. You're in that mix of, hey, Ann, I got some life under my belt, but I'm not done yet. So hit the like and subscribe button, and again, share this with a friend.